Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It's Wednesday. We're halfway there. Hopefully everybody's week is going great. I'm having an awesome week, and I've had a lot of exciting surprises this week. A lot of interesting career things that have been going on, some stuff going on behind the scenes that I can't just drop yet, but I do have some announcements to make that I think you'll be really excited about if you're a regular viewer of the Wake Up America show. And if you are a regular viewer of the Wake Up America show, I think you know what to do. It's time to hit that like button and help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. I've got a personal little surprise for you today. I have an in-studio guest who's going to be joining us all morning. He's a familiar face around these parts. He's a freedom fighter as well. He's Cliff Maloney joining us in studio. Why don't you give him a nice round of applause? How about that? Good to see you, Cliff. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here bright and early.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Cliff Maloney, he's actually a Missouri man now. And I remember you were having this whole thing about Texas and Missouri. You were like, I don't know, Missouri's got that property tax thing and stuff like that, but you ended up here in Missouri somehow. So welcome. Glad you're here.
Glad to be here.
Be part of the Show Me State, my boyhood home where I was born and raised. Now, you are a liberty activist. You've won over 300 campaigns. You're the host of the Cliff Maloney Show. You've worked for the God of Liberty, Ron Paul, and you're a Rand Paul staffer as well, and you're still out there trying to make liberty win. Cliff, it's great to have you on the Wake Up America Show. You're home. This is a place for people like you, so welcome. Glad to have you here. We've got a lot to talk about this morning. I'm excited to talk about the big news. Ron DeSantis set to announce for president of the United States, according to multiple sources, alongside Elon Musk. And I have to be careful how I say that because it sounds like he's running with Elon Musk. He's not running with Elon Musk, but apparently Elon is going to host him and interview him. So SpaceX, Tesla, Twitter, and now he's going to take our journalism jobs. He's an immigrant taking all the jobs that Americans won't do. Is that what it is, Cliff?
I think this is going to be the big test. I mean, how does DeSantis come out of this? Does he look strong? I think Musk having him is a great decision. If we really do think that Twitter is becoming the public square, when you've got one of the leading presidential candidates deciding, hey, I want to sit down with the current CEO, I think it's a big deal. And I do think it's a risk for DeSantis. I mean, a lot of these presidential campaigns would much rather have something staged, a video they can release, and they can control the narrative. But I think it's an interesting choice, a strategic one that has some upside, but there's definitely some downside. I mean, to a live interview rather than putting something out that is completely scripted.
Yeah, I was going to have Elon Musk when I announced for president in 2016, but he was actually kind of busy that day. He had a conflict. No, it's a big deal, but you're right. He is taking a risk, and I'll be interested to hear your take on sort of how Ron DeSantis compares to some of the other presidential candidates. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let me set up the rest of the show for you today. I didn't book any other guests because I got Cliff with us all morning. It's going to be a great program. Two great minds of liberty collide here on the Wake Up America show to discuss at 7:30. Apparently, Tarjay, I guess is what we have to call it now, set to get the Bud Light treatment. What I'm reading in the news this morning is that apparently Bud Light managers have had a huddle and are talking about how they're worried that their new line of transgender clothing for kids might offend some customers. They're worried about getting the Bud Light treatment. We're going to talk about that at 7:30 this morning. And I have some video of that Alex Stein, conservative comedian kid, which did you see this video of him running around Target with his tucked?
I cannot look away. Cannot look away.
Video of Alex Stein. He's a conservative provocateur, you might say, wearing the new line of Target tuck-friendly clothing, and we'll all have a good laugh at that. Hopefully it won't get us banned from the platforms that we're streaming on this morning, but thankfully we're streaming to like half a dozen to a dozen platforms. Somewhere I've lost count. So hopefully at least one of them will let us stay up today while we play that clip. At 8 o'clock today, I've got for you a update on the ATF pistol brace rule. This is for a lot of us. Well, I say us, but all my guns, of course, the bottom of the Missouri River. But the ATF pistol brace rule is set to make millions of Americans potential felons here in the United States. This is a rule that it was handed down by the Biden ATF that made people who owned AR-15 pistols required to register their pistols with the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And essentially, if you didn't do that, or if you didn't get whatever I think you called a Form 2 and fill it out and give all your fingerprints to the feds, then I think in less than 10 days, you can be considered a felon. But then they issued this new guidance. It's very confusing and
Huge ramifications for
yeah.
gun owners, and I think it's one of those things that we've kind of just briefly looked at, but it could have huge impact.
Yeah, no kidding. But the Firearms Policy Coalition, I've heard, has filed a lawsuit or an injunction. We don't know how far that will go, but God, where's the Supreme Court when you need them? We'll talk about that this morning at 8 o'clock. At 8:35 today, the Violent Femmes professor out of was it Rutgers or some New York City professor got violent at a table of pro-life students who were just standing there talking about their beliefs. She came up there, started messing with them, and it became a big story because everybody saw the video, and it wasn't. I mean, she was just getting angry, and she messed up their table a little bit. No big deal. Did you see the new video that came out?
Machete time, baby.
Dude, this lady pulled out a freaking machete, and she actually put it to the throat of the reporter, which is crime.
Right,
It's a
right.
big crime. The tolerant left, they're so peaceful and loving. Cliff, we'll play that clip, and then we'll have some fun. And we're gonna go out today with a story that I meant to talk about yesterday. I'm sure a lot of people might have already seen it, but if they haven't, they'll get a kick out of this. Did you see that Tim Pool was talking about how he's been comparing leftist women to Lizzo, and how he's like, "Oh, you're all like Lizzo. You look like Lizzo," and they all get mad, even though the left has been telling us that she's beautiful.
Lizzo is the beauty standard.
She is a queen. She's Slay. Yes, Queen Slay.
10 out of 10.
But for some reason, the ladies get upset whenever you say that they look like Lizzo. I don't understand why. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show today if we have time. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Glad to have you here. Thanks so much for tuning in, and make sure you smash that like button. If you like the content that you're seeing today and it's your first time here, subscribe to our channel so we can help spread the message of freedom. That's what we're all about today. Mr. Embry joining us, as well as Fed Up Kentucky and Kermode Bear. Grixis is here with us. He saw me yesterday on John Burke's show. Welcome, Grixis. I think you'll like this program as well. Rare Camellia, all the way from Florida. What are you doing? You should be on the beach. Quest Fanning, Joni Rankin, Nomad John, John Rail, Caleb Vanderfelt, Michael Nip, Corey C., all joining us here today, as well as dozens of others and more who will be joining us soon. Let's talk about the big news today. Ron DeSantis. Elon Musk said he would interview presumptive Republican presidential candidate and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday on Twitter. They're promising a major announcement. Of course, he's expected to announce his 2024 presidential bid. What do you think? I mean, it's a risk, but you kind of got to do something to stand out, right? You got to make yourself different, right? And honestly, I think it's a good move. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a big opportunity for him to do something, like I said, different. It's off the cuff. It's going to be something that he has to go off the script. I mean, the problem you have with this is the reality of the past elections, especially with Trump, is you always have people who are fighting for airtime. Trying to get in a word when Donald Trump is one of your political opponents can be pretty difficult. Now, I do think a major difference this cycle is it is a two-man race. Yeah, you've got Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Glenn Youngkin now flirting. But the reality is the past 3 to 4 Republican primaries have been these crowded fields. I mean, in 2016, I think every Republican senator ran for president. You had 30 people on the stage. So I think that'll play a little differently, but I really want people to pay attention to his launch, not just tonight, but over the next 2 weeks. What does his fundraising look like? What does it do for polling? Because as much as us politicos know who Ron DeSantis is, there's a lot of people, a lot of Republican voters across the country, they're not that familiar with Ron DeSantis. And I think you only have one launch, and you've got to be able to tap into that momentum. And right now, Donald Trump is just clearly dominating in every Republican poll. I mean, he is. And anybody that doesn't think that hasn't been paying attention. But Ron DeSantis hasn't been a candidate. So he has his chance to announce, has his chance to raise some money. And then I would say, he gets to spend his money to actually present a message, to talk to voters. And I just think you have to see how his momentum projects over the next 2 weeks to a month to see if he's able to kind of capitalize on the announcement.
What do we know about Ron DeSantis? Here are some fast facts I pulled for you this morning. Before his political career, Ron DeSantis was a talented baseball player. He was a member of the Yale University baseball team, and he played in the Little League World Series in 1991 as a teenager. I know what my libertarian friends are thinking right now. Yale? Was he skull and bones? Honestly, I have no idea. He also served as a U.S. Navy lawyer. He's a former JAG officer. He served at Guantanamo Bay. Yikes. Another one. Got some questions maybe about that one. He's an author. He's written several books, and he earned a Bachelor of Arts in History and Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Yale. He also got a JD from Harvard Law School. He taught at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. He often emphasizes his working class roots, but his father was a distributor for the New York Times, and his mother was a nurse. He's a conservative, considers himself an originalist, which means that he interprets the U.S. Constitution as the founding fathers intended. And he's married to Casey DeSantis. They have 3 children together, which is interesting in contrast with Tim Scott. I saw a buddy of mine from D.C., Will Chamberlain, the other day. He was talking about the possibility of a Senator Tim Scott presidential campaign. And I guess I didn't know that Tim Scott's never married and didn't have children. And for a lot of people, that's a big disqualifier. It was when I ran for office. A lot of people were really concerned. Like, first of all, they're like, what do you shop at Target? Do you drink Bud Light? Uh, but people kind of distrust unmarried politicians.
Yeah, I saw Will's tweet saying he was disqualified. I thought that was a pretty interesting take. I had no idea either. I thought he was, you just assume. I mean,
Yeah.
people that get elected, especially to the U.S. Senate, unless your name's Lindsey Graham, I guess they're both from South Carolina. So maybe that does track. One other note about Ron DeSantis that I think is going to be hilarious for the Liberty crowd is he's a co-founder of the Freedom Caucus. And it's so funny because like the Trump super PAC right now, all of the ads they're running against Ron DeSantis are, that he tried to cut government, that he tried to cut, Medicare or Medicaid and some of these programs. And so it's going to be very fascinating, because there are people on a lot of sides of this, but it'll be fascinating to see. This is why it's difficult to lead as a liberty legislator, right? Because when you vote no on things or when you try to make these tough decisions, it's so easy for people to smear you. He voted against certain budgets. He voted for tax cuts. And so it does give a lot of ammo to individuals to try to come after you. And, so I look at Ron DeSantis and I think it'll be interesting to see how he's framed because his voting record in Congress, he was one of the most free market voting records in the last 20 to 30 years. If you
That's
look
what
at
I'm
his
saying.
actual votes.
Yeah, Tim Scott, right.
No, I'm talking Ron DeSantis.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ron
Ron
DeSantis.
DeSantis, like if you look across the board, the reason I bring this up is like during COVID, everybody wanted to praise DeSantis and Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem has like a 60% rating with like the weak sauce conservative scorecards.
Oh, no.
Like not even like, some great Liberty Index score. Ron DeSantis is like top 90% on all of his free market votes. And I always go back to that because you have to give credit where it's due.
That's what matters.
And if his record is actually solid, I get excited about that. But I always give him credit because the battle for the Republican Party, as you and I know, is a huge battle. Some people believe in that strategy. And Ron DeSantis not only stuck his neck out, he was a founding member of the Freedom Caucus, which in my mind, they're not perfect on everything, but they're the one sane voice or at least group of people pushing back within the party.
Well, and here's the thing: our buddy Thomas Massey has already come out for DeSantis. And I mean, endorsements don't necessarily decide who I vote for, but when somebody like Thomas Massey endorses someone, I pay attention and listen. And so the fact that he's already come out for DeSantis puts DeSantis far ahead and above many of the other candidates for me. But you know who else I really like is, and I know he's kind of like the novelty candidate, but I like what Vivek Ramaswamy is saying. And that's why I like when people run for president, even if they don't have a chance. I saw the National Review editor, Charles Cook, was talking about like people who, it should be harder to run for president and things like that. And I'm kind of like, I it's sort of like at the beginning of my presidential campaign, I remember saying to myself, I'm like, these idiots can do it, I can't. And I was like, actually, it maybe should be a little harder to run for president. But you get ideas out there, and that's what a lot of these soon to be also ran candidates sometimes really are all about getting ideas out there, and he's a great advocate.
No, I think Swamy is the perfect example of why I do love having a crowded field. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, if you look at the last couple, I mean, the Democrats are going through it right now. They're all going to coalesce behind Biden, and not that Biden would be some great debater or somebody that would want to engage with ideas, but when you have multiple candidates, you have to think of something to say. My favorite Biden quote ever is, "What do you talk about when you got nothing to say?" Because there are so many of these political events you go to, and it is just regurgitated talking points, and it is the same exact thing, maybe said a little differently. And eventually, it's like you go to CPAC for your 10th time, and you're like, "All right, if I have to hear Michelle Bachmann, scream about how." We've got to secure our border one more time. It's like, okay, we get
I
it.
miss Michelle
We get
Bachmann.
it. So I do. I think people like Vivek and these candidates that get in. I like those change agent candidates. I like when you ran. I like when people step up and it's like, hey, I have a different perspective.
Mm.
Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, forget it. It's your typical neocon, conservative thumping, and hey, we're here to restore America. Forget that. But people like Vivek, I'm hoping DeSantis takes a cutting edge approach to his campaign. I mean, even Trump, we really don't know what the campaign message is going to be.
Mm.
And I think we have to see how that develops.
Yeah, no, the thing about Trump, the allure of Donald Trump running again, for those of us who aren't necessarily even the biggest fans of Donald Trump, the allure is that he first of all, he has no friends or allies anymore in Washington, D.C. He has to start over from square one because everybody they worked with, he either fired or they stabbed him in the back and they wrote an awful book about him. So he's going to have to start getting second and third string people pulling him up. Who knows? You and I might get a phone call. We're the only people who haven't betrayed Donald Trump left in politics. Uh, so he goes into Washington D.C. without any friends, which I imagine some people might say, oh well, you got to have connections to be able to get things done. Uh Maybe, but he goes in there with a vengeance. He goes in with a slash and burn approach. And it may not be a libertarian approach with a slash and burn approach, but God help us, if it's a bull in a china shop, destroy their china shop, bring down the deep state abolish the FBI. He'll have more incentive to do more damage to the Washington establishment now than he ever did in 2016. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I think that in 2016, my hope is that when you get punched in the face, you learn some lessons.
Mhm.
And I think that Trump, went through the process. He still has these funny moments where he's like praising Lindsey Graham, even though the guy is disagreeing with everything he's saying, but he's just been fooled on the idea that, oh, well, Lindsey's been loyal. So I think that Trump hopefully, learned enough that if he does get back in, yeah, we can't fund the FBI. They just spied on you. We can't we can't fund these entities like the DOJ that are completely corrupt. I think he's kind of past that point. And like you said, when you get past that point, sometimes that's a positive. Like I'd rather have somebody who's going to kind of expose and blow things up rather than this like, Mike Pence go along to get along message of we need, a better government, good government. No, we're past that.
The only thing that, sometimes Mike Pence does make me swoon because he's one of the only politicians, Republican politicians, who still has the balls to call out Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and be like, yeah, we do actually need to talk about privatizing it. When Donald Trump has not and does not and is like, I'm going to protect your Social Security.
Right. And that's where I always laugh because the populist side of the economics is where we have a lot of issues.
Yeah,
And it's like, not only are they against us, but then they use that against all of our folks,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
it's like, yeah, he's gonna take away your benefits.
yeah. Remember how
Bro.
Yeah, remember? Yeah, no, the reality is going to take away our benefits. But do you remember when Donald Trump came after Thomas Massey? That was when I just was like, no, no, Trumpy boy, you got to go
He's a
down.
third-rate grandstander, Thomas Massey.
That's
Third rate.
third rate. Not even second rate. He's third rate. Wow. Okay. What does that make us? But yeah, no, I didn't appreciate him coming after our boy. And you know what? A lot of people who stood up to Donald Trump did not withstand the storm, but Massey did, and you got to give that to him because Massey, say what you will. I mean, other people, Amash, like they've kind of fallen by the wayside. Rand Paul, he managed to survive, and quite frankly, a lot of our guys who came in who were swept in during the Tea Party years, either they turned coat to big government spending or became neocons or anything like that, or they just disappeared or didn't get reelected. But people like Massey and Rand, they've sort of withstood the storm.
Well, I think they understand the strategy. I mean, Justin Amash, his voting record fantastic, but absolutely irrelevant now, and no strategy.
Mm,
Failure to have any strategy,
right.
and it's kind of a shame. He let Trump derangement syndrome kind of take hold and couldn't see straight for the
It hit
last
a
3 to 4
lot of our
years.
people, man. The TDS.
Massey and Rand, I feel like, have really understood that loyalty to principle always, loyalty to party not a priority. But I think at the end of the day, it's like they understand what battles to pick. Rand partnered with Trump on so much in terms of foreign policy because Rand, from the get go, understood that Trump's instincts on foreign policy, the populist side of Trump, was that, hey, we want to save kids' lives. The guy's going to Walter Reed. Like, let's dive in on that. Did we think that we were going to be able to get a balanced budget amendment? No, I think Rand Paul spent his time on the issues he should have with Trump, which is how do we avoid starting another war? And that was the first time it happened in, the past 6, 7 presidents. So I think that Massey understands this better than anybody. I think him endorsing DeSantis is a very big deal. I think what that tells us is that he trusts DeSantis's instincts, and he spent time with them in the House. So I get excited about the idea that if DeSantis, now look, my focus is not on presidential races, right? I like to focus on state, but there are very much positives. If you tell me that it's either going to be Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump, I'm pretty excited. We're not talking about a Rick Santorum. We're not talking about a Jeb Bush. We're talking about either the chief anti-lockdown guy in America during the biggest moment of tyranny when most libertarians failed, like he was the guy, or the guy who literally had his campaign spied on, and the government has been going after him for the past decade, now coming in with a vengeance, a bull in a china shop, as you would say. Those are two great options with some positives. But on DeSantis, if when he turns to Congress, he leans on people like Thomas Massey for advice and for guidance and for policy
I
positions.
know, but it's like I feel like Lucy, letting Charlie Brown kick the football. It's like maybe this time they're going to really let us do it.
Right.
Good morning. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you click that like button. And if you're not subscribed to the channel that you're watching us on already, make sure you do that so you can help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Joining us now in studio is Cliff Maloney, who's here today, all the way from Sedalia, Missouri. He drove in today to help to join us for the entire show. He's a fellow freedom fighter and a liberty activist. He's also the host of the Cliff Maloney Show and a former Ron Paul and Rand Paul staffer. He's going to be joining us today to talk about all of the topics. If you have a question for us today, you can send it in as a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. That is a free way to send us a text message, but we also love it whenever our listeners help support the show. If you're a big fan of us, by dropping super chats over on YouTube or on Rumble as well. And of course, we will read your comments if you do that. Yeah, so thank you very much for all your support this morning. All right, so we've got a few minutes before I want to talk about the big topic, and I know a lot of people are tuning in to hear about this news about Target holding this emergency meeting to avoid the Budweiser situation. We're going to get to that in about 5 minutes. But I saw this story yesterday, and this is worthy of a few minute conversation at least. Apparently, Ford Motors has reversed their course on AM radios in their vehicles, which a lot of people would say, okay, well, what's the big deal? It's an outdated technology. Why is this a story? Well, one, Ted Cruz actually introduced legislation to start the process of trying to mandate them having AM radios. But it affects the political sphere on the right because for so long, for what, over dozens of years, decades, Cliff, Rush Limbaugh, as the head of AM talk radio, revitalized it, brought it into people's living rooms, really led a conservative revolution that in many ways has sort of petered out. Because most of the people, especially people who are watching us now on Rumble or on Facebook or Twitch or what have you, they don't listen to the radio. I think it was like the demographics that were the key demos was like 8% of the demographics. So people are sort of aging out of the AM radio, but there's still this desire to hold on to it. Do you think that there'll ever be another Rush Limbaugh or another conservative revolution that comes through AM radio, or do you think this is sort of the last gasp? What do you say?
No, I think this is definitely the last ditch effort, if you will. I mean, I love AM radio. It's one of those things that I do think you see obviously older generations in that population still tune in. I don't think I know anybody under the age of 50 that listens to AM radio through the radio, right? I mean, some people, through the internet will get the stream somewhere.
Hmm.
But no, I think everything's moving that direction. I mean, look at cable. Cable went from, I think, 70% of households just when Trump ran in 2016 versus now it's down to 40% of American households have cable. And so I don't look at that as a negative. I mean, I think what's going to happen here is you're going to have this slow move toward any type of streaming service. People are going to, fall for certain platforms that they appreciate, whether it is Twitch, whether it's Spotify, all these different platforms. But I think it is going to be an interesting thing to see kind of a decentralized message, and I think that's a great thing. I think the people listening to this show, you have a niche, you have an ideology that you can respond to news and give your take because people appreciate and respect it and agree with your ideology and they're interested in it. And I just think that, instead of having 4 or 5 big names, we're going to move to a more decentralized system where people are getting their news. It's already happening, but people are going to be getting their news from, 100 to 150 people across the country that are kind of responding to what's happening.
We're going to move on to the next topic here. I've got a video for you to play, which I may have set up correctly or I may not have. This is what happens when you live. The difference between radio and podcasting is sometimes you got to say "F it, we'll do it live." Okay, yes, I'm going to set up our Twitter weirdness scene for you here. I've got a video of Alex Stein. Prime time Alex Stein. For those of you who don't know him, he's a conservative provocateur. He's absolutely hilarious. He went to Target yesterday to try on this new tuck-friendly what is it? It's like a bathing suit or something like this, like a bathing tuck-friendly bathing suit. Here he is. He's apparently putting on the bathing suit. You'll be able to hear this and see it if you're watching us live right now. Take a listen.
This is not, you guys see this? It's tuck-friendly.
Look at this guy. Extra coverage. He's walking up to the employee, his junk hanging down.
We're at Target, checking out their tuck-friendly Pride collection. That's right, guys. Extra crotch coverage, tuck-friendly construction. Thank you, Target.
No, it is.
How many of you have the guts to do something like this?
Tuck,
dude, no.
Tuck-friendly
Construction, okay. Well, let's see how tuck-friendly it is.
Oh my God, this guy.
Wow,
Okay, he comes out of the dressing room here. Just bulging away. I thought it was supposed to be tuck-friendly. It's not very tucked. Now, how are you going to put this on and then actually walk out of the dressing room and have a person record you?
Look, I got this.
Oh
is
my
not,
God.
you guys see this? It's tuck-friendly.
Oh my God, dude. I couldn't. There's no way I could do something like that. Well, anyways, here's the news. Apparently, Target employees... Let me kill that audio there. Apparently, Target employees have been gathering together to talk about their fear about the LGBTQ merchandise in many of their southern stores. So some southern Target stores were forced by the corporation to move LGBTQ merchandise away from the front of their locations after customer outrage has sparked fears of a backlash. They want to avoid a Bud Light situation. Your take on this?
I think that you have a problem in America where these corporations are listening to the 5 to 10% of the woke DEI type employees or corporate leaders that they hire. Because look, you have to understand, people ask, how would Bud Light do this? Why would Target ever do this? And it's because you have these leftist organizations that rate your diversity score. And so they ask you to do certain things, and if you want to boost your score, you have to hire these types of, diversity officers and these directors and VPs of diversity. And so these folks come in, and it's almost like an HR person searching for a problem, right? It's like, where can we show that we're racist, but we fixed it? That's how we're going to solve and save our country from these racist, extremist MAGA Republicans. So you have these corporations who then get these recommendations, and then what are they going to do? You can't avoid doing it. Once it's been recommended, what are you, a racist? You've got to do it. We've got to be inclusive. So then the corporations are forcing these types of products. And as Alex said, and as the stories have said, into some of these targets in the South where people are like, why do we have these things in the kids section that say, queer and queer pride for 5-year-olds? And why do we have these bathing suits with tuck friendly tags on it? I mean, what you're doing is you are punching half of America in the face and then asking them to still buy your products. But they're so tone deaf, they're so stupid, these CEOs, they don't realize it because they're stuck in this bubble of like, well, we have to be inclusive. That's a response. They pressed the CEO, and I'm not sure if it's a he or she. I think she said, oh, well, I think it was the right decision because we're being inclusive. This isn't about being inclusive. It is about the idea that there are activists driving your corporate decisions that go plainly against what a lot of people in this country believe. And this isn't some non-issue. It's not like they're taking some stance on, the color of their bathing suit. You're literally printing a tag that says this bathing suit is tuck friendly. So if you're a man who wants to be a woman for the day, you can tuck your penis into this bathing suit. I mean, that is a bold statement. This isn't just some small thing.
Well, and here's the thing, and one of the things we kind of have to be careful of is I notice that we sort of become hyper reactive a little bit to certain things. Not this Target thing, which I think is a little weird, but not everything that is gay is woke. Right, because social conservatives who are obviously triggered by anything that's LGBT, I think sometimes can be so hyper reactive that it becomes like playing whack a mole a little bit. We got to kind of pick and choose our battles on this.
Well, Dave Chappelle gets it better than anybody. There's LGB, and then there's the T's. Like, let's let the T's do their
and the
own
QIA
thing.
plus everything like that. I saw a video or a meme the other day that showed LGB and they were being dragged down as an anchor by the T movement, right? Which transgender, transsexual, that's existed forever. It's not a new phenomenon, but what the new phenomenon is
For kids, man.
for kids,
It's the
yes,
kids.
right,
And
right.
as a libertarian, people can make their own decisions.
Mhm.
But when you get into this business of really pushing it on children,
Mhm.
and these are life-changing decisions that you really can't reverse.
Mhm.
And I get a lot of libertarians who push back and say, "Oh, well, the right wing has hijacked this issue." Mutilating children is not part of the LGBT. Like, if that's part of the brand, the mutilating children, I'm with you, Austin. That is the part that we have got to speak out about
I agree.
and figure out how, the government, I hate to say this, if we're going to be involved at all, they should probably protect kids from getting their boobs chopped off or their penis ripped off.
Yeah, Chris Morrill over in the live stream says Andrew Sullivan's kind of had it with the T's too, which is funny to me. He's always been one of the biggest like gay rights advocates out there. I mean, he's a gay man himself. And my brother has actually been pushed. He found himself he hadn't moved his political persuasion at all in the last few years. He still holds to his same viewpoints and ideals, but he had to vote Republican in the last election because even his own movement, the LGBT, he says that they have gone too far and gone so far to the left and so far off of the rails that he finds himself, he considers himself a liberal, but he says that the left is no longer liberal. They're illiberal, right? They're anti-liberal in a way. And I mean, that's what we're going to play this video of this professor later, where she literally, I mean, there's nothing less liberal than holding a machete up to a reporter's neck because they asked you about why you shuffled papers over a pro-life table.
Loves free speech, as you know. They're
Sure
the
they
bastions
do,
of
yeah.
free speech in this country.
Wild though how they've done such a 180. I
It's
mean,
been 4 years.
I think
It's literally been 4 years.
yeah, well, it's the Trump derangement syndrome, bro. It broke them. It broke their brains. And we had a lot of our libertarian friends who you mentioned that earlier, rightfully. So a lot of our libertarian friends did get Trump derangement syndrome as well. I mean, there were libertarians who supported the lockdowns. I remember at the beginning of COVID-19, like Nick Sarwark arguing with me on my Facebook page, trying to like explain the science of infectious disease to me. Haven't heard from him in a while. It's been a couple of years. They've disappeared now.
Those people are unserious. They're not real libertarians.
I saw Massey calling him out, by the way. It was like Jeffrey Tucker put out this piece where he was calling out all the libertarians who were like for the lockdowns and the mandates.
When it first happened, I mean, I got hate mail. I got notes from people high up in the libertarian movement.
Same.
Keeping YAL open and keeping us, we were planning on doing an event that got shut down by the city of Dallas. I had people who literally went after me saying that you are presenting libertarianism as a radical movement that is losing all credibility. And I had to sit back and I said, hold on. The most tyrannical moment of our lifetime where a government told people who can go to work, who can go inside, who has to wear a mask, who has to get a jab. Like, this was the moment.
Yes.
This was our time. And
Yeah.
Jeffrey Tucker was spot on in this piece when he said, where are the libertarians? You know, you had Massey, you had Rand just going full bore against the deep state and against some of these actors who thought they knew better than
I mean,
anyone.
even Trump was like buying into the lockdown stuff in the beginning, right? And you know, I know a lot of his supporters kind of forget that he was like, you know, vaccine salesman in chief. Right?
Well, and the other thing is there's two parts to this. The first part was like, who stood firm immediately, right? And my favorite line is, you either believe in liberty in times of crisis or you don't believe in liberty at all.
Amen.
Who stood with us when it wasn't popular? But what's even crazier is if you look back and you look at some of these so-called libertarian leaders or libertarian groups who refused to speak out even months after, when things were becoming kind of lighter, and they just said, you know what, we don't have the courage, we don't want to touch this issue. And a lot of those are the Beltway type libertarians who were in that DC bubble. What I learned during that whole process, Austin, is that the people that come from blue collar working America, they couldn't just stay home, right? You talk about your brother, my sister had the same political awakening because of COVID.
They took the red pill.
Because what happened was she had a governor in Pennsylvania, in Tom Wolf, who said, hey, we need you all to stay home for the next 3 months. So there's paycheck to paycheck. You can't just stay home. But these politicians and these Beltway libertarians that have never had to worry about where their next meal comes from, they were completely tone deaf. They didn't understand that not everybody can just sit in their house, sip on their, their tea in the morning and think about, oh, wow, I really hope that we get to go back to work. No, these people live paycheck to paycheck. They've got to put food on the table for their kids. And I think that really was a cataclysmic shift, that it might not be Republican, Democrat, but I think you had enough people who said, why are we letting government make these decisions? And I think that was a big help for our movement.
Yep. And speaking of putting food on the table, if you'll excuse me for just a moment, I want to talk to my listeners about our friends over at Lear Capital, who are sponsoring the Wake Up America show. They are the precious metals leader in the country. I highly endorse and recommend their services. The great thing about Lear Capital is not only do you get great prices for your precious metals, but they will also buy your precious metals back at any time, no questions asked. My friends over at Lear Capital have set up a really nice little deal for you to get a free gold and silver information kit over at their website. The best way to get in touch with them, though, especially if you're a big supporter of the Wake Up America show, is to give them a call at the number you see on the screen and just let them know how grateful you are that they support the Wake Up America show. Because, we're not the biggest podcast in the world. We're not Joe Rogan worthy levels. But you know what? They came to me and said, hey, Austin, we like your message. We like what you stand for. We want to support you because we believe that you and this show are a big part of the future of the message of freedom. And anybody who believes in gold knows that gold is intrinsically tied to our freedom. It's a great way to hedge against inflation, which we're all suffering under right now, and to ensure that in the future, your savings will be protected. Give them a call today. Say, hey, Austin sent me. I want to get that free gold and silver information packet. Send it to me in the mail. The phone line is 1-800-885-2175. Type that out on your phone or write it down for me now. 1-800-885-2175. If you've already got your gold and silver information packet, I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Drop in the comment section below what your experience has been like with Lear Capital, because I know a lot of people worry too when they give their information away to a third party or a company. They say, oh, well, they're going to spam me all the time with phone calls and things like that. That's not been our experience or anybody who has signed up for the silver packet, the gold and silver packet from Lear Capital. They're not pushy. They'll call you once, have a conversation with you about your financial goals, and explain to you what your options are if you want to get physical metals in your hand, put it in the safe, or if you want to put it in your retirement account for tax benefits. Great way to save money and protect your future. Call them today, 1-800-885-2175, or if you're phone averse like so many millennials and Zoomers are, you can visit their website, learaustin.com. That's AUSTIN.com, LearAustin.com. Sign up for a free gold and silver informational packet today. Find out more information about how to protect your savings. All right. Coming back over here to my buddy, Cliff Maloney. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, Cliff Maloney joining us now in studio. He's a fellow freedom fighter and a fellow Missourian now. We are here today talking about some of the backlash to Target. But, Memorial Day is coming up, which I'm excited for. It's been pretty warm already, and I just keep thinking to myself, God, I want to go get in a pool, right? I've already done a canoe trip. I've got a couple more planned already. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm floating on the river is to drink a nice, delicious can of Yuengling beer. I never drank the gay beer, but apparently it's starting to get a little tempting now just because they're basically giving it away now. After this Dylan Mulvaney disaster, Bud Light is advertising a summer rebate to make your Memorial Day weekend easier to enjoy. Customers who purchase a 15-pack or larger of Bud Light, Budweiser, or whatever, any Bud product there is going to receive a $15 rebate. So a 15-pack of Bud Light is listed for $12.99, the same price as a 15-pack of Budweiser. So essentially, you just get a free case of beer there. Cliff, are you going to drink the gay beer?
That's full damage control. Full damage control. I'm a Yuengling guy myself. It's funny you say America's oldest brewery based in Pennsylvania, my home state. Good people. But no, I think it is crazy to me, the fiduciary responsibility that that Budweiser has, and they have not come out yet and just said, "Hey, we're sorry. We made a mistake." It's just this constant repeat of non-apologies. And it kind of baffles me that in corporate America, that's how much of a stronghold the transgender activists, I feel like, have. That they can get a company like Bud Light and force them to, not be able to apologize. I mean, I don't know how bad it's going to have to get, but this is widespread. And I don't think this is something that just goes away after a couple weeks because, they kind of rub it in everybody's face.
Speaking of going woke, I don't know how big a fan you are of the Indiana Jones movies, but there are very few movies from my childhood that hold a special place in my heart. Where not only did I love the films and obsess about them, but I would pretend that I was the characters and run around, right? Pretend like I was, Dr. Jones, being an archaeologist and things like that. And I always really looked up to him, and because of that, that film series, Harrison Ford became one of my favorite actors as a kid growing up. So if Harrison Ford was in a movie, I had to go see him just because he was Indiana Jones. Well, apparently the latest word is that the new Indiana Jones movie, and I don't know, did you see Kingdom of the Crystal Skull or?
Mm-mm.
Oh, you bless you, child. You did the right thing because it scarred me, and I think I've got some kind of a mental block up about it because I don't remember any of it. I just remember that I hated it so much, and I wish that I had never seen it. So I must have created some kind of trauma-based emotional block. Well, I see now that apparently, because it's Disney, of course, that they apparently Indiana Jones might be going woke. So I saw this screen grabs that people have been sharing on the internet from the new film where he's accusing someone of stealing something. And then when they say, oh, they're stealing something, oh, it's called capitalism.
Right.
That capitalism is called theft. They just had to drop that little anti-capitalism message, and they couldn't just have him doing what he was doing and being an archaeologist, being a hero, killing Nazis. It had to be an anti-capitalism movie as well, Cliff. Will Hollywood stop at nothing to destroy everything that we loved about our childhood? Luke Skywalker, for God's sakes.
I don't think you should get your hopes up. When you have a white man as the lead actor, they've got to balance the scales a bit. I think this is what's really disappointed me in our generation is this idea that the word capitalism is the boogeyman. And obviously the thing that frustrates me the most is, you have a difference between crony capitalism and corporatism versus, the actual free market. And unfortunately, both Democrats and Republicans, but especially Republicans, like to run on this idea that, we support capitalism. But a lot of times it's capitalism for their buddies, right? Or the people that are well connected or that are politically connected. And so, yeah, I think them going woke, it's an interesting phenomena because you would think that Disney would learn their lesson. I don't share this story often, but when I was in college, I paid for my books by dressing up as Buzz Lightyear for kids' birthday parties.
You look like Buzz Lightyear.
So I've got the whole suit, the getup, and then when Lightyear came out, I was like, man, I might be able to dust things off and get back out there. And Disney lost $106 million on Lightyear. And you compare that, everybody makes this comparison, but it's the truth. You compare it to Top Gun Maverick. I mean, Top Gun Maverick did $1.4 billion around the globe.
I mean, you would think they would learn from that they would be like, okay, so there's the formula. Let's just follow it. And then, we can make money and people will enjoy it and want to come back to the theaters.
Right. And I think it's this weird, like trophy that these directors or producers want. And that is to try to say that they're inclusive. And it's like, listen, you're talking to two libertarian dudes here, very inclusive of everybody. That's fine. But it's the point of like, why am I going to see Lightyear and you've got, they're championing and celebrating this same-sex couple. It's like, it's a kid's movie.
I know.
Like, dude, we can do that, but like, this is not something that people just see and they're like, oh, well, they're championing it, so it's okay. It's like, no, somebody made that decision. It's like, can we please just enjoy these childhood stories that we know without it always being pushed into some activist corner?
Robbie Thurman over the live stream dropped a comment. He said that the new movie will be called Indiana Jones and the Signal of Virtue.
That's pretty good.
Very good, very good. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm here hanging out with my buddy, Cliff Maloney. Cliff Maloney is a former Rand Paul staffer. He's helped over 300 Liberty candidates win their elections. And he's also the host of the Cliff Maloney Show. He's joining us here live and in studio today for the entire program. We're super grateful. I feel like the whole world's on vacation. Judge Napolitano is out. Camellia Peterson is out on vacation. Everybody's out having a good time. So you're really saving my butt here. Yes. And I appreciate that, Cliff. Well, what are you doing these days? Let's spend a couple minutes just kind of talk about your current projects, because I'd love to learn a little bit more about what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so helping candidates directly, those that are looking to run for office, would love to chat with you. I spend most of my time talking people out of running for office. I think as a liberty strategist, you have a lot of people that want to jump in and they're trying to win, but a lot of times, as grassroots candidates, we don't have the special interests. We don't have the lobbyist money because we're not promising favors to anybody. So what that means is you need real grassroots support, and you've got to be able to tap into that. So a lot of what we're doing is state races, trying to get folks in, trying to win a couple more federal races to get some Thomas Massie, Rand Paul like champions. But that's a lot of the strategy in terms of politics. The project I'm most excited about is we're really trying to create a liberty state. And we've got 3 states we're targeting currently, but the one that I would tell everybody, or 2, I should say, to keep your eye on, are Idaho and New Hampshire. And how we measure that, people say, well, what's a liberty state, right? Every state's got different things. Here in Missouri, it's supposed to be a red state. We still have an income tax, which is absurd. You Republicans should get your act together and get rid of the income tax.
Exactly. Thank you.
But I really think Idaho and New Hampshire, and I could talk to you about the polling and talk to you about why we feel that the potential is there. But if we had 25% of the state house and 25% of the state senate as Thomas Massie's in one of these states, and you get a Thomas Massie, Ron Paul, Rand Paul type elected governor, I think you completely transform a state overnight. I think the policies that come from that, I think the things that will lead from you actually getting government out of the way. I'm not talking about tinkering with the edges, right? I'm not talking about, we want to get some school choice bill passed. I'm talking about completely rethinking what the role of government is. And I believe this. I believe if you do create a liberty state, that people will flock there. I think quality of life will go up. Businesses will be attracted. Individuals will be attracted in this area. And so that's one of the biggest projects I'm working on, is focusing on the state house and state senate in Idaho and New Hampshire to try to get to a point where we control both of the houses, the House and the Senate, both of the chambers, and then working towards electing a liberty governor. We've had pieces around the country. You've had different people in different roles. But I think if you get that trifecta, if you line up with liberty governor with control.
Hampshire, they kind of have a head start, right? Because they have the Free State Project, and I know that it's gone in and out of popularity, and I'm not sure where it stands right now, but I know a lot of people have moved to New Hampshire for that reason. How's that going?
Yeah, so the Free State Project is fantastic. Let me just say that, give it my full endorsement. The reason that we launched kind of our Liberty State effort in New Hampshire is one, in part to that, but two, it's because half of the people in the Free State Project don't believe in voting. So that's fine, and that's, to be honest, I mean, that's, if that's their opinion and that's their strategy,
Free
that's
country.
fine, right? But what we're trying to do is, right now you've got Jason Osborne as the majority leader in the state house. He's a Carl Menger fan. He's like a devout Austrian economist, Ron Paul guy, and these are the people that have decided, hey, let's get involved in the system. So I think piggybacking off the Free State has been great. I want to give credit where it's due. There has been a migration into the state of people who believe in the principles of liberty. What we're trying to do is wrangle those within that group that say, hey, maybe we should play in the political process and change public policy to try to, play defense against some of these scoundrels in government. And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons New Hampshire has been at the top of the list.
Yeah, there is one big downside to New Hampshire. Our friend Cheeky Mayor has pointed it out. She says, I have looked at property in New Hampshire, but it gets too cold in the winter for me. Can we find a state that is warmer? What, would you sacrifice your freedom for warmth? Yeah, it is a little bit cold there in New Hampshire. I like it, but.
Well, what else is tough is when you look at grassroots campaigns, if you do a state race in Texas or California or New York or even Florida, some of these races can cost, $500,000.
Yeah.
You run for state house in New Hampshire, most people don't even open a bank account, right? They don't even, they don't even spend money.
Almost did a spit take.
So it really, when people ask me, how did you come up with these targets? It's based on the idea of, if our goal is to take over these chambers in the state legislature, well, what does it cost to win those races? And then the governor's races. In Pennsylvania, they spent $100 million on the governor's race. In Idaho, you spend $2 million and you're the top spender. So that's the objective, and that's probably the project I'm most excited about, is really trying to create one state that can lead by example.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. It's great to see a nice big audience over on YouTube. Give yourselves a round of applause. 50 people watching on YouTube, about 20, 30 watching us over on Rumble, and 10 or 15 so on all the other platforms, means that we've got about 100 people watching us live this morning. The little speakeasy bar that we're broadcasting in right now, if this room had all of the people who are watching the show in it right now, it would be packed to the gills. So grateful to have a nice big audience with us today, and we appreciate your support. If you haven't already, make sure you click that like button, right, to help us spread the message. If you like the message that you're hearing and it's your very first time to watch this show and you're like, hey, you know what, this Austin guy's really fun and I like his guest, Cliff Maloney, make sure you subscribe to the channel that you're watching right now, especially over on Rumble, where we're really trying to grow right now. I'm doing a big Rumble push. But it is nice, of course, to see that the Cantina crew reigns supreme with a nice big audience over there today. And if you are joining us today and you're like, hey, you know what? I like this Austin Peterson guy, but I want to have my opinion heard. You can text the show for free, and I'll read your text on air at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. I know what a lot of you are thinking right now when you're looking at the screen. Cliff can't see that there's a big, giant Donald Trump toilet brush on the screen right now, right next to him. He has no idea that it's there. But if you're asking yourself what the hell is that, that is one of my most popular products at apforlibertyshop.com. For some reason, this item gets the haters and the lovers of Donald Trump, because you would think, oh, this is just for people who hate Donald Trump. They're going to use him to swirl around their toilet bowl. But people who love Donald Trump also like the Donald Trump toilet brush. And you know what? God bless it. It's a great product. You can, and it will be shipped to you lovingly from my wife, Stephanie, who included a sweet little note with it. So you can get that at apforlibertyshop.com. Oh, and don't forget, if you see the prices over at apforlibertyshop.com and you're like, ooh, boy, that may be a little bit higher than I expected. Don't forget, there is a 15% off coupon on the front page of the website that'll give you a little pop-up so you can save some money there. And shipping is free if you live within the United States. We had a person buy something from Germany the other day, and unfortunately I did have to charge him shipping. So it's America, baby, USA all the way. So if you want to get some great items, patriotic merchandise, all of our 4th of July collection is 10% off right now. So if you go and buy anything from the 4th of July shop today, it's 10% off until the end of the month. And Stephanie and I, we have been absolutely busting our butts to make awesome new t-shirts and merchandise. Yesterday, we dropped a new product, the Teddy Swoelsevelt. What do we call it when it doesn't have sleeveless, for God's sake?
Tank top?
Tank top. Thank you, God, for the love of God. Oh, no. Love of God. I'm pulling a Joe Biden right now
America is a
here.
nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Check out ap4libertyshop.com. We're going to take a brief commercial break, Cliff, so that we can go to the bathroom, get a little drink, and we'll be right back with more at 8 o'clock. We're going to talk about, I have no idea because my rundown is in front of me. There it is. The ATF's new pistol brace rule. Tens of millions of Americans could be made felons overnight just because of this one weird trick. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America Show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America Show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America Show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America Show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America Show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America Show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at ap4libertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mom, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3. You're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell! This commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Look at that. Look at this. Look at this guy. Look at this right there on the highway. That is a team of wranglers who lassoed a cow on a Michigan highway with the help of state police after it escaped from a pasture. Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm joined in studio by my fellow liberty activist, Cliff Maloney. Cliff couldn't see that video, but it was a guy who was riding his horse, running down a highway full speed, Cliff, and wrangling a cow. That other guy chasing him with a four-wheeler and ATV and stuff like that. Only in America, brother. Right. Only in America would you see something like that. Cliff, we're grateful to have you here today. Thanks for driving in all the way from Sedalia, Missouri. If you're watching the show today and you enjoy the content, make sure you smash that like button. Help us to spread the message of freedom, which is what we're all about here today. Speaking of freedom, it's under threat from the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, well, really the Biden administration, which laid out a new rule that would make tens of millions of people felons overnight. That is those who own pistol braces on an AR-15. You know what a pistol brace is?
Oh, yeah.
Cliff, and what this is all about? You want to explain to our listeners? Because not everybody's like gun freaks like us, you know?
Well, I think before I even dive into that, I think that it's always interesting to me when you have the Biden administration, they think that this is just a no-brainer. They think like, oh, well, these braces are bad. And, only the gun fanatics and the people that are going to do bad things have them. I grew up in the Philly suburbs. I didn't fire a gun until I was 21 years old. Now the folks in Missouri here, will make fun of me for that. But I think the reality is that, it's just a culture thing. Some people don't understand. And, it's growing up. It was the good guys, the cops had the guns, and that was it, and if bad guys got guns, they got guns. It wasn't, the normal citizen got to have a gun. I even did some time teaching in New Zealand, and you want to talk about a culture where it's the same thing. They just had no sense of the idea that a person should be able to defend themselves. So I just wanted to make that point to start, that it's like, there's definitely this disconnect, and there's two Americas where, some people see guns and they're afraid. It's like guns are a sense of fear. They're a sense of bad things. And to 50 to 60% of America, when they see guns, it's you have a gun to protect your house, you have a gun, to protect yourself, your family. Sure, you have a gun to go hunting, but I think that that's still this weird dichotomy in America where people think, you only should have guns to hunt. Like, these are what the city folks say. We don't need guns. We've got cops down the street. I live in the middle of nowhere, right? Like, you got to have something to protect your family with.
Yeah. Even in Japan, Stephanie and I were there in February. They had a gun shop in the middle of Tokyo that we stopped in. And apparently it's difficult to be able to buy it. And you've got to, they will like interview your neighbors about whether or not you're insane. But they do have them. After World War II, gun ownership in Japan was kind of looked down upon by the American GIs. But in regards to the current situation that we're faced with right here, why this is such a big deal is because tens of millions of Americans bought these AR-15, what we call pistols, which under any other circumstances would be considered a short-barreled rifle, which the government doesn't like because they're like, "Ooh, he's going to hide it somewhere and then whip it out at the last second and all this stuff." But under this classification, it used to be that if you had a pistol brace, it was not considered to be a short-barreled rifle because these braces were developed for people who had handicaps. Now, Cliff, you and I know that maybe 90% of the tens of millions of people who bought these pistol braces did not do so because they are unable to fire an AR-15, a short rifle.
Just to be clear, I bought mine because I had this horrible boating accident. You were there when I had this accident. And I needed the brace to make sure I wouldn't keep losing my guns overboard.
Yeah, you still lost it anyway. But the problem with this rule is that the ATF wanted these people to register their firearms as short-barreled rifles. I guarantee you that most of the people who did that probably didn't even hear about this rule. I mean, it's not as if it's not like there's a tracking program, right, where they can just go in and say, "Hey, everybody who had," because when you buy a gun, you don't even necessarily buy the full weapon. A lot of us buy parts
right.
and then we build it up. So it's not like the feds have any idea who has these rifles. And I mean, not everybody's listening to the Wake Up America show every morning. They should, but they don't know necessarily this is going to happen. I mean, it carries a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence if you get caught with one of these things and you haven't registered with the ATF. I'm going to curse here. So turn your volume down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's fucking tyranny. That is just pure fucking tyranny to do something like that overnight and to make it for 10 years to sit and rot in a jail cell. That's tyranny.
Well, and it's unprecedented because it's so rare for there to be a rule or a law that comes into place that overnight, right? It's like, like you said, how do you even tell these people? If you're talking about tens of millions of Americans where all of a sudden something that was completely legal one day on a Monday, on a Tuesday becomes something where, hey, listen, you're now going to get 10 years mandatory minimum jail sentence. It's dangerous. I mean, it's kind of, I would even say irresponsible because it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, they're going to grandfather people in. No, they're just saying right away this becomes illegal. And I think when you have that precedent, man, like you said, what happens to the people that have no idea? Is that fair to them? That all of a sudden overnight they're considered a horrific criminal who needs to be locked away for 10 years? It's crazy.
Well, the latest news is that the Firearms Policy Coalition has secured an injunction against the ATF pistol rule. They're going to try and seek clarification on the scope of this ruling. However, it's believed that the appeals court that partially blocked this ATF pistol brace rule is unlikely to prevent the agency from enforcing the regulation nationally. Here's the thing. We have to be so careful about how we talk about this because we could commit a crime just by telling someone to commit a crime, right? And so I don't want to tell people to not register their firearms with the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. But if you do, I mean, in my mind, that's unconstitutional. Like there should not be a firearms registry here in the United States. But effectively what happens is that when you go to the ATF and you fill out the Form 2, you're telling the federal government that you have that gun. That's the last thing I think anybody should do, in my opinion.
Well, I'm very fascinated, and I'm going to cause I'm going to create a lot of enemies here. Which gun groups actually stand firm on this? Where's the NRA? I'd be interested to see kind of their position and how much they go in on the bump stock ban. I mean, they were asleep at the wheel. And that's why I always encourage any of the listeners, viewers out there, really look at some of these gun groups and see which ones make sense. I mean, here in Missouri, I've got Missouri Firearms Coalition, the Doors, top-notch people that are not afraid to kind of go to battle, even against Republicans that are looking to grab guns. National Association for Gun Rights, Gun Owners of America. I just always encourage people to shop around to see which gun groups, when these real battles come up, not just, hey, I'm support the Second Amendment. Yeah, we all do, right? But when there's a real battle on something like this, are they compromising or are they really going to bat for this idea that we have a right for self-defense here in America? And are they really going to do what a lot of people don't want to do, which is it's not popular to come out and say, yes, everybody should be able to carry and own and possess a firearm without registering it.
I'm reading the news this morning. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what this ruling will mean. Brandon Meyer over in the live stream is joining us today. Good morning, Brandon. He's a crab fisherman. Hope you're doing well. Glad that you're here, and I hope that the crab fishing this last season was good for you, brother. A lot of money in that, but very dangerous. The 10-year mandatory minimum is if you do not register your what the government calls short-barreled rifle, but which many people had understood to be an AR-15 pistol. But the funny thing about this thing too is, Cliff, is that it's really the AR-15s that they're going after, because there are plenty of other types of rifles that you don't even have like pistol braces for, short rifles, short pistols and things like that. They're out there, completely unregistered, undocumented, and in the hands of criminals who are never going to obey the laws. We're making law-abiding citizens criminals, people who, from a tactical perspective, if you have a short-barreled rifle, especially if you've got one that's suppressed, that's a really good home defense rifle to use, especially for somebody who can't carry a heavy gun. Because I've got like the World War II collection, and I've got an M1 Garand. That shit is heavy, bro. That weighs a lot, and it's very long. But if you have a shorter pistol type weapon like an AR-15, that is a really good self-defense rifle, because if you're moving around corners in your house and you don't know where somebody is around the corner, things like that, you need to be able to wield that sucker. I mean, essentially the government is taking away one of our best forms of self-defense.
Right, but you're talking about common sense. You're talking about rational home defense or self-defense. These Democrats and the Biden administration, they're reacting. Right, the people writing these policies, God forbid, I would hope that someone has some sense of, how to actually assemble a firearm. I have no faith that the Biden administration has people in the room that have ever even handled a firearm. I just don't. I think that what they're doing is they're reacting. One of their biggest campaign slogans, rhetoric, and empty promises is, we've got to stop these school shootings. And I think that they dive in on that. It's a fear issue. Every side looks for fear issues they can try to galvanize votes on. And to the Democrats and to Biden, it's we must stop these mass shootings, and these white nationalist MAGA Republicans are the devil and the greatest threat to our country. And they actually believe these things, so they have to take action, right? They say in the political world, nothing is moved unless it's pushed, right? They have to push something. They have to put something out. So you watch these debates within Congress. I mean, Thomas Massie is wiping the floor with these Democrats who don't even understand what types of guns they're talking about. But this goes to your point, Austin, that they have to create some rule, even if it doesn't make logical sense, even if they're missing the boat and 85% of firearms that you would think would still be labeled scary are not going to be impacted. They just feel like they have to be able to put out that fundraising email. They've got to be able to tell people, we stood up for the children and they stood up for the mass shooters, which is completely bonkers. But that's what happens in the political world. You have to do something.
Well, the thing is that the left operates on emotion. So whenever a tragedy happens, to them, they're not sitting down and thinking in the long term, what will happen if we denigrate our rights, if we start to degrade our Second Amendment rights? They don't understand that. While I have empathy for the victims of mass shootings, and the people who commit these things deserve to burn in hell, I don't allow my emotions to override my good sense. So they always ask the question, like, how many people have to die before you'll surrender your guns? And I'm like, basically anybody who's trying to take them from me, all of them, right? Every single one of them. There are no amount of corpses that the left can stack up that they can grandstand on, stepping on with their high-heeled boots, digging into the eyes of the bodies of the children, that they can stand there and say how many more have to die, things like that. The number is infinite. How many soldiers had to die to give us these rights? How many tens of thousands, hundreds to thousands to millions of American service members had to go and fight and battle in order to protect these rights, in order to grant us these rights? Because quite frankly, the only rights that we have, Cliff, are the rights that we defend. right? We can talk all day long about our innate rights and our natural rights as an outgrowth of our humanity and all these high ideals. But quite frankly, at the end of the day, government is force. And the only way that we're going to have rights is if we are willing to use force to defend those rights, Cliff. And that means up to and including the right to defend ourselves from a tyrannical government using violence if necessary. I hope it never comes to that. I've never advocated for that. I think it would be a terrible thing. I think probably less liberty would be the result of that. But ultimately, that's what the founding fathers fought for, that right to individual liberty against a tyrannical government. The Second Amendment was not about hunting deer, my dude. It was not about hunting at all. It was about hunting tyrants, perhaps, if our government becomes tyrannical. And people ask me a lot of times when I go to debates and speeches, they'll do the question and answer at the end. And a couple months ago, I did a debate in Maryland for a Turning Point USA group, and this young lady came up and asked me, she goes, "When do you think the time is to have this revolution?" And I think she was kind of a lefty, but she had some libertarian sympathies when we chatted after. But she's like, "At what point would you say is the moment?" And I would say, and I just answered, I was like, "The moment, the same kind of moment that the shot heard that around the world was started over, when they come to seize your guns. When the British came to Lexington and Concord, and they came to seize the powder kegs away from the militias and to take their guns and to take their powder, that is the time, right? So if there's ever some kind of a mass confiscation of our firearms or an attempted mass confiscation, well, I'll tell you, remember what happened in Hurricane Katrina when they came? I think it's perfectly legitimate. It might not be lawful, but morality and lawfulness very rarely align. You have every right to defend yourself. So this is terrible, and this is going to win me no friends, and I'll never be able to run for office again when I say this. Somebody shared a meme the other day that I laughed at, where it was these people where they're all looking at the news and laughing, reading something and laughing, and it was like ATF officers shot in Dallas, Texas, and it was like a meme of people who are all looking around laughing and stuff like that. But sometimes these people, they are as what Thomas Paine described. Thomas Jefferson described when he wrote the Declaration of Independence. He has sent hither swarms of officers to eat out our substance. I know probably a lot of people who listen to this show, they back the blue, but who do they think is going to come and take our guns away? And that's why I like sheriffs more than cops, because sheriffs at least have to be elected, and they are responsible to our citizenry. But quite frankly, I think that America is quickly descending into a totalitarian police state, and that the confiscation of our firearms would absolutely be something that would call for firing back. That's my opinion. Probably going to call me a white supremacist and put me in jail, but I'm not going to drive a U-Haul into the White House or anything.
Well, look, you're having a good faith argument that I just think Democrats have completely, and a lot of Republicans as well, have completely moved away from. You're talking about government protecting and understanding the rights of individuals. I just think so many of these folks, it is whatever political thing they can jump at. I'll give you one quick example. I was living in Florida when COVID hit. Thank God I was in Florida and out of DC at that point. But we had one Democrat elected statewide, and she was in charge of the concealed weapons license process. And I always joke with people, I say, if you don't think this is political, think about this logic from the left when it comes to guns. COVID happens. She decides that she's going to announce that she's going to shut down the concealed weapons license process. Everyone said, okay, well, yeah, I guess with COVID. Well, then people dug in and said, hold on, it's online. So she took this online concealed weapons license process. This woman's name is Nikki Fried, and she shut it down. And then what did she do? She went and fundraised on it across the country. These are not good faith actors. These are not people who are trying to say to us, hey, how do we make sure we uphold the rights of the citizenry? They're trying to score cheap political points and really negotiate our rights away because they truly think they know best. This is the problem with Democrats, the whole Biden administration. If you really go to the core of it, they think they know better than you. They think that they get to decide what is in the best interest of people. And that to me is completely bonkers. But that's the difference. If you believe in the Bill of Rights, and if you believe in this idea that we should defend liberty and that we should only have government in very, very sporadic cases where it's needed to defend life, liberty, property, that's very different than if you think government's the answer to every problem. That is what we're dealing with when you try to negotiate today with the radical left and the Rhino Republicans, because they've sold out the American people. They've sold out our rights for the idea that, you know what? us, the political class, we know better than blue collar working Americans.
Well, you would think too that COVID would have been such a huge red pill, and I know it was for a lot of people. I think they saw that they said that like black males became like the number one gun purchasers in the entire country when COVID hit. We stocked up on firearms like it was going out of business, and certainly it's really made the situation difficult for guys like me because as a collector, I'm always trying to like stockpile ammo and things like that. Now I can't afford any of this crap. Everybody's buying up all the guns, but you would have thought that the tyranny that the government enacted during COVID-19 would have been the kind of situation that would have woken more people up to what government is capable of and made them say, hell no, we're never going to give up our guns, especially the riots, the BLM riots in Minnesota and things like that. But it just seems reality is that some people will never learn. You can hold them down on the table, Cliff, and forcefully inject the vaccine into them 3, 4, 5 times. And they will say, no, yes, daddy, give me more, daddy government. We need more.
I think there are clearly two different groups that came out of COVID. And it was, those people who said, hold on a second, they're more our ilk. And they said, this is out of control. Government is not what I thought it was. We've made a great mistake here. And we've given these clowns too much power. But what should have scared people more and what should make you fear as an American are the people who sat there and said, no, this is what we have to do for the greater safety. The people that still think that, wearing a mask on an airplane, sitting with 200 other individuals is going to be the difference maker. Those people exist, and I didn't realize to what extent the amount of these people who would see tyranny smack them in the face and they'd respond by smiling. And if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, I don't know what will. They almost got excited by it because, we have to be, if we just save one life. Really?
Yeah.
That's like literally the tagline you're going to go with to give up all of your rights. It's just if we can help other people. Of course, we don't want people to die. Of course, we want to help other people. But they rolled over so quickly, Austin.
I know, God. We could talk about this for probably 2 or 3 more hours. But as it stands right now, there's no way that with the conversation that we just had that YouTube or many of these other platforms are going to allow us to be monetized. So you can help to fight back by either dropping a super chat over on YouTube right now or on Rumble, kick a couple of dollars into the can to help us to spread the message of freedom. If you like what you've been hearing there for the last 10, 15 minutes and you know that YouTube censors aren't going to like it, just remember you can help us to stay cancel proof. But if you're a good capitalist like a lot of people are, don't forget that I am dropping links to the AP for Liberty Shop merchandise. So a purchase over at apforlibertyshop.com goes a long way to help us spread the message, and you get some awesome Liberty merch as well. One of my favorite items is the Statue of Liberty holding the AR-15. So you can check that out. I dropped the links to that in the comment section over on Rumble and YouTube. But if you can't find it and you just head over to apforlibertyshop.com right now, type in statue or Liberty statue gun. You'll find the t-shirt over there. We've also got some, and I'm going to say a bad word. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Hope your kids aren't listening. You can turn the volume down now, grab their phone, turn the volume down very quickly. We've also got a really cool new product series called Fuck Around and Find Out, which is our Fuck Around and Find Out doormats and our Fuck Around and Find Out shirts and Fuck Around and Find Out wall tapestries. So Studio 314, thanks for the super chat. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Because again, we do lose money when we have these kinds of conversations because we get demonetized. So if you kick a couple bucks into the can, that helps us to sort of, cancel out the cancellation that could occur whenever we have those kinds of conversations. Because if you want to hear these kinds of conversations, you got to help support us. And I appreciate that. And if you can't afford it, no problem. I understand. You can help us for free just by clicking that like button and subscribing if you haven't already. All right, let's move on to something that won't get us canceled real briefly here. Let's talk about, we're going to completely segue to something, out of the blue here. Because I read this story yesterday and I thought to myself, a lot of people in our generation, Cliff, especially, I think you're a little younger than I am, and our generation and younger have this dreams of traveling the world. And listen, I get it. I just went to Japan. Wife and I are talking about, our next overseas trip to Germany and things like that. But we talk about what's within our budget. And I read this story yesterday about this guy who wrote in Slate.com. And yes, I read Slate sometimes. I read it so that you don't have to. God, I even have a subscription to the New York Times. Please don't cancel me, right wingers. I have to know what they're saying so that I can make fun of it here on the show. Buddy Manser, if you want to bulk order quarters, you absolutely can. Send me a text message and I'll get you a deal worked out for a bulk order on the Washington smoking hemp quarters. But this gentleman wrote this story at Slate called "I Traveled the World for Years. Now the financial reality is hitting home," and he says the misery of daily life is taking over. When I'm young, when I'm 20 years old, Cliff, it sounds great. You know, get a backpack, stay in hostels and things like that. Now, like hostels, no. But this guy is talking about how he spent his ages 19 to 33 living in New York, traveling all over the world as much as possible. He says that now he's broke. No, he's terrified no one will love me because he has nothing to offer financially. He also has a low credit score. He says he's torn between using what little money I can put away on another trip or putting in savings and just allowing the misery of daily life with no breaks to take over. This is kind of what happens when you kind of romanticize, spending your youth traveling, drinking, partying. Not that I didn't do a little of that, but I did save some money as well, right? There's this kind of like pie in the sky attitude that a lot of young people have about travel and how happy it's going to make them. Is happiness overrated? Would you say at some point, right? Comfortability can lead to happiness, right? You got to do things to make yourself comfortable. I take risks all the time. I'm a scuba diver, right? I love to do crazy stuff within reason, right? What's your take on this story?
Life's tough, man. As Jordan Peterson, who I'm a big fan of, says, what is happiness? Is it sipping on pina coladas, for a month on a beach? He says no. After like the third week, you're like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Like, okay, the sand's great, the sun's great, but like, by 2:30 in the afternoon, you're feeling all sick to your stomach and you're kind of like, is this fulfilling? So I think a lot of times I see this, I'm 32, I see this with my generation where, I've been blessed working hard, building certain things. I've gotten to travel the country, but yeah, I get very sick of the travel.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, the travel to me is after a while, it's kind of got this allure.
It's kind of like if you eat a cupcake for every meal, you're going to get sick of it,
Right.
right? It's like anything else. There's something about trials and tribulations, about the challenges of daily life that define you. Not only do they define you, but they also help you to. There's a happiness to hard work, right? The Protestant work ethic is not just something that's foisted on us as something to help big corporations survive and make more profit. But there's something about adversity that helps us to be happier with who we are, because in a small way, when you go to work and you crank out 8 to 10 or 12 hours a day or whatever it is that you do and stuff like that, self-satisfaction to me, I think helps people to feel more self-satisfaction than they would ever get from a trip around the world, seeing some beautiful sights and things like that.
Well, and I think the difference between traveling for leisure versus if you're like, hey, I want to go travel and I'm going to work and I'm going to immerse myself in different cultures, I think they're two different things. I mean, when I did my teaching in New Zealand, I grew a lot. It was uncomfortable. You're in this new environment. You're trying to figure things out. I was teaching 7th graders. And, you learn so much, not just about that culture, but about yourself. Even my wife being military, we have to travel every 3 years. No sane person is going to move every 3 years, pick up their entire life, and then travel to another state, the middle of nowhere, Missouri, currently, and be excited about this. But I'll tell you, it helps you grow. It helps you to learn because you have to meet new people. You have to hear different perspectives. But I think that involves still working, right? That involves some structure. That involves, whether it's a day job or entrepreneurial building companies, like you have to have some structure, because I do think there is value, Austin, in being able to sleep, on your pillow every night, and being able to at least, cook yourself breakfast.
Well, his big thing too is that he's worried that he won't be able to find a partner who will love him because he hasn't created stability. Now maybe there's going to be somebody there's probably somebody for everybody, and maybe he'll find somebody who appreciates
Close, yeah.
Maybe not. But I have to say, it's probably difficult if you are a man. If you're a woman who did that and stuff like that, it's a little easier, I think, right? You can always kind of, find somebody. But if you're a man and you haven't created the things that most women look for in a man, you're going to have a really difficult time bringing someone to the table who wants to settle down because they're always going to worry, are you going to be just taken off at any time,
I still, and this is going to sound very cliche, I still look at America as a place where you can build. If you really put in the hard work, you can build. And so I think my advice to this guy would be, listen, get to work. Start to save some money. Start a company. If you can't start a company, work an hourly job until you can save off enough money. And then, try to build a company yourself. Try to build up enough capital.
Travel agency.
To go, there you go.
Yeah.
To go back to school, to earn a degree, to be able to build up your skills. But I mean, listen, he's not 60, right? He's in his 30s, I think. I mean, he's got plenty of time to start to build something. And, one of the things that one of my dad's best friends always said to me, he said, there's always ways to make money. He said, you just have to have the ambition to get the hell out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think for this guy, it's like, dude, just, get to work. There's plenty of opportunity. People are dying for people to come work for them right now.
Oh, I know. I'm trying so hard to find somebody to hire. Jamie Marie Pope over in the live stream says, come to Louisiana. Women love men who lack stability.
Well, I do have to give Louisiana a shout out. They did pass constitutional carry yesterday. We'll get to that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw Jamie mention that. So congratulations, Jamie, and congratulations to all the people in the state of Louisiana. It's amazing that we had to fight so hard to get that,
Red state.
Red state.
Come on, we need leaders, man. It's brutal out there.
For sure. And Jamie Marie Pope, she stepped up. She's being a leader. She's running for office down there as a state representative.
Yeah,
Good
we
for
need her. You guys should all check her out, Jamie Marie Pope.
Yeah, I'm a monthly donor, and people should sign up for Jamie Marie Pope's campaign. I donate $20.13 a month or $20.23 a month. So it's a great way to help support her campaign. So if you're a Cantina crew member and you want to help support another Liberty candidate, I suggest and recommend and endorse Jamie Marie Pope for state representative in Louisiana.
Awesome.
Yeah, so check it out. All right, you ready to move on to a different topic here? That was a little 5-minute time for us to move on. We're almost to the end of the show. Did you see this video of this professor who whipped out a machete? Okay, so it started like this. It started, she just shuffled some papers at a pro-life table. I'll tell you what, instead of narrating it, why don't I just pull up the clip? Watch this video from this pro-abortion radical professor, Shalyn Rodriguez, and how she treats these pro-life students. Take a listen to this.
You're not educating shit. This is fucking propaganda. What are you gonna do? Like anti-trans next? Is that what you're gonna do next?
I mean, no, we're talking about abortion.
This is bullshit. This is violent. You're triggering my students.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
You're not. Because you can't even have a fucking baby. So you don't even know what that is. You don't even know what this is. Get this shit the fuck out of here, yo. This shit.
Okay, it's funny that she says, "Oh, you're violent," and then immediately grabs their stuff and throws it at him on the table. So this lady is insane. But it gets worse actually because she got put on, I think, administrative leave from the university. This video here from the New York Post, the reporters went to her apartment. And God, these shitty New York City apartments. I remember. They're terrible. They're so dirty. There's like cockroaches everywhere. So this pro-abortion professor who vandalized the Students for Life table, Shalyn Rodriguez, she holds a machete to a reporter's neck. All right, just stop narrating, Austin, and just watch.
Away from my door. Get the away from my door.
Look at this.
Let's get out of here.
Oh.
You can't do that.
Away from my door.
Look at this.
Get the away from my door.
Let's get out of here. You can't do that.
Get out of here, indeed.
Away from my door.
Get the hell out of
Away
here.
from my door.
Let's get out of here. You can't do that.
Away from my door. Get the away from my door.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah. So that was a New York Post reporter who had showed up to ask her why she vandalized the Students for Life table. She whips out a machete, dude. Whips out a machete. Then she actually later she chased him in the streets. Chased him down in the streets with the machete and was chasing him to his car. And then she kicked him in the shins or something like that. At least that's what I'm reading from the latest reports like that. Dude, and they say you don't need guns. Guess who brought the machete, the AR-15 to the machete fight? God.
This woman is the epitome of, she's an absolute lunatic. Those words, I really think this is a battle that we've got to make sure we win. When people say that words are violence, when she says, oh, your beliefs are violence. They're triggering me. This was the thing. I graduated college in 2014, and it's like I was right on the cusp of when this was just entering into the conversation. This idea that, like, you cannot challenge someone and the ideas and beliefs that they hold because you will trigger them, and that is violent. And so you're the oppressor, and you're the person that has to apologize, and you're the evil, violent one. Look at this lunatic. She then goes and takes a machete and holds it against a reporter's throat for asking her questions. I mean, it literally is the pot calling the kettle black. These individuals that think, they're projecting all of their faults and all of their just nastiness on other people that are trying to have honest conversations. This pro-life group, you don't have to agree with them, but they're sitting there handing out information about why they think that babies shouldn't be killed. And this woman literally is like throwing things around and grow up. What are you, like a child that you can't have a conversation? This woman's a professor? My gosh, if you think there's hope for higher education, we've got to get rid of crazy, insane people like this. They're not serious folks, but they're teaching the next generation.
Well, the thing is like, why? Like they immediately rush to violence. It's while they're calling us violent, and yet they're doing it. How do they sort of like? I guess I just can't understand how their brains work, right?
I think they get to it right away, Austin.
Yeah.
They justify the violence because it's like, if we're able to stop this evil, look, if your opponents are always considered to be Nazis, seriously, if your opponents are evil, vile people, in their head, that's what they think. They think, they disagree with me. I am morally and I am the just person here. So I can use whatever tactics I need to destroy, shut down. And the human nature that happens in them is violence. We must shut them up because they're hurting other people. It's just complete bonkers.
Yeah. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful to have Cliff Maloney joining us in studio today. Thanks, Cliff. He's been here with us for the whole show. He's a fellow liberty activist, host of the Cliff Maloney Show. He's helped over 300 liberty activists get elected. He's helping to make liberty win, and we're grateful to him for joining us here live in studio today. If you're liking what you're hearing from me and my buddy Cliff, hit that like button on whichever stream you're watching us on this morning. We are multi-streaming to Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, Boxcast, the Spreely Hub app, Freedom Hub Network, and probably a half a dozen other ones that I just can't remember off the top of my head. But we do that because this is one of those shows that the establishment doesn't like, doesn't want you to hear, doesn't want to promote, doesn't want you to support, doesn't want you to hear these ideas. And so we multi-stream in order to avoid the social media censorship. This morning, we've already had enough conversations to get us demonetized over on YouTube. So there's no way we're going to be able to monetize this stream directly. So we count on the support and the financial contributions of people like you. However, I am a capitalist, so the apforlibertyshop.com website is open and available for you right now. I highly recommend the phone cases if you haven't seen them. If you're a big Ron Paul fan, we've got a great phone case over there with one of his awesome quotes. Our country's founders cherished liberty, not democracy. And I know a lot of you are big fans of Ron Paul. Check it out, Old Man Liberty over there with a phone case. I'll drop the link over on Rumble right now as well as on YouTube. So if you want to get an awesome phone case for whichever phone you've got, make sure that you drop them over there. If someone asked the question, are we streaming to OnlyFans? Not just yet. I'm not that desperate, but if things get bad, then yeah, we will. But it would be funny to see that. There are people who apparently do OnlyFans who don't post Bob's and Vagine, but I would post Bob's and Vagine. So I know.
Oh God! No, God, please, no!
No, don't forget it down. Shut it down. Shut it down. He says, Brother, shut it down. Right. The Wake Up America show is brought to you by listeners and viewers like you, as well as our sponsors, who I've got to talk about right now. My good buddy John Burke came on the show yesterday, and he is a big sponsor of this show. If you haven't seen his website, shellshockcbd.com, for those of you out there who were CBD skeptics, I was like how you were. How's that work? I was a skeptic as well of CBD and Delta 8, and I have to say that I am no longer a skeptic. You know me, I'm skeptical about everything. I'm skeptical about government. I'm skeptical about conspiracy theories. I'm skeptical about this and that, right? I don't believe, I'm from Missouri. Show me, right? This is the show me state. Well, I'm going to show you that CBD and Delta 8 can work for you. There's a lot of people out there selling snake oil. John Burke is not one of them, which is why I feel proud and I heartily recommend and endorse Shell Shock CBD products. Just a warning, fair warning for those of you who might be a little bit beyond your party years like me, that Delta 8 stuff is powerful, and it's legal in states where medical hasn't come yet, or even recreational hasn't come yet. Thankfully, in my home state of Missouri, it is legal now, thanks to a ballot initiative that passed, so we're safe. But check with your local laws before you purchase. Here's the good news: if you get a product from John Burke at Shell Shock CBD, say you try his hemp tea or perhaps maybe one of his tinctures, and he's got this really great freeze roll-on, which is comes highly recommended. The roll-on, roll-out for your aches and pains, and I get a lot of them after my workouts. I'm going to use it tonight after karate, I promise you. But he does have a money-back guarantee for his products. So if you buy it, and because Austin sent you over there, and you use your code AP for Liberty, one, you get 10% off. But if you buy it and then you don't like it, money back guarantee, you send it back, you get your money back. So there's no risk to you. Why not try John Burke's Shell Shock CBD products over at shellshockcbd.com. Again, use that code AP for Liberty and you'll get a 10% discount off today. If you've ordered some already, let me know. What do you think of what you got? What did you get? Let us know in the comments. Again, don't forget that coupon code shellshockcbd.com. Use that code AP for Liberty. I love the hemp THC loophole, says Studio 314. Yeah, that Delta 8 stuff. I was like, again, I was such a skeptic, and God, I should not have taken that an hour before bedtime because it was over for me, man. I was up until 1 a.m. For some reason, it makes me productive. I don't know about the rest of you out there in the world who are like, they get couch locked, but for me, it's like, I don't know. I'm just like chatty, talkity, workity. So I don't know. I guess I got lucky or something like that. The THC gene or something like that makes me super productive, like that movie Limitless. I don't know, something like that. Anyways, don't forget to check out that website, shellshockcbd.com. Get yourself some great products over there at John Burke's website. I endorse and recommend them mightily. All right, we've got about 20 minutes left in the show. Cliff Maloney still joining us here in studio today, which we're grateful for, Cliff. We've got a couple more topics to go, and usually I like to end the show talking about some like fun, lighthearted, funny topics, which I definitely have cooked up for you here today. I saw this Tim Pool, our buddy Tim Pool, has been trolling the left, and I mean, he's when he's not trolling the left and trending on Twitter, he's also trolling the right. And I like Tim because he's very even-handed. I don't know if you've ever been on a show, but when you go in there, he's very open-minded. He's not an ideologue, like kind of like you and I are in a way. So it gives him the opportunity to explore different topics and to sort of point out cultural absurdities, which I think a lot of people miss. But I really like this meme that he shared. I really like this story that I was reading yesterday about how he's apparently getting shredded for saying that liberal women should be complimented by comparing them to Lizzo or Dylan Mulvaney. So here's the story. Tim Pool is getting chewed up because he's saying that he thinks that the liberal ladies should feel complimented because, we hear a lot about how beautiful Lizzo is. She's spectacular, right? 350 pounds, getting naked and on the cover of magazines, which, you know what? This is America. And I'm like Ron Swanson. If you want to consume a Delta 8 bar, Wonka bar and blow up to 500 pounds, that's you and I, we both had our weight struggles and things like that. So we're nobody to talk about, but we've gotten down to reasonable weights at this point in time, although I am on the upswing, unfortunately.
We're both there.
We're both on the upswing. It's a constant battle. It's it's all those delicious Yinglings. But anyways, I just like the hypocrisy here because he's getting in trouble for saying liberal women should be complimented by comparing them to Lizzo or Dylan Mulvaney. And I'm going to put a meme up on the screen right now where it shows these people saying Lizzo is beautiful, and then it shows the white people on the right saying no. And then the white Chad says, "You're beautiful. You look like Lizzo." And then the people are like, no, they're angry at him. It kind of makes me think, and this is where we're really going to get canceled here on this topic, but it makes me think that women really only support other women as long as they're not a threat to them. Meaning that, and see, I know you don't want to say this, so I know you don't want to, I'll say it so you don't have to, Cliff. But they're all, yes, queen, slay, she's beautiful, she's perfect, she's a 10, if she's 500 pounds. But if she's an actual beautiful, gorgeous woman and things like that, they're like, it's a little bit more muted. I mean, Tim is really kind of pointing out the hypocrisy of the left. You've seen these Calvin Klein ads, haven't you? Where it's like, 600-pound orca, right? Victoria's Secret and things like that. And on one hand, I get it. Most Americans probably look like that. Look like, schlubby. Here we are, a couple of, we're not schlubby white guys, but we are white guys. We've got a little
guts.
There's a roundness to our chins, right? If you will, right? I have the camera angle set up and things like that. Again, I don't want to be a hypocrite here or anything like that. We all have struggles with our weight. Most Americans probably look like that, but there is something about that feels like it's being foisted to an extent, right? That there's a lionization of it. That there's that the left wants to try and healthy at any size and things like that. Cliff, you and I know you are not healthy at any size, right?
I think what you're finding here is, I think we went through this about a decade ago where commercials and advertisements, you stop seeing white straight couples. Okay. I think this is probably maybe 5 years ago, but I think definitely like between 5 to 10 years ago, because it was a statement. Because what would happen is it was just safer to put up couples that were not straight white couples, because then nobody could ask you, how come you're only putting up commercials with straight white couples? And it's like, well, this is an automotive shop ad in the middle of, Alabama. That's why we have this up. We're trying to connect with certain people that are our community. You can't say that, right? And I feel like that happened a couple years ago. And I think now what you're seeing is it's the same exact thing, but it's for obese or transgender type folks. And it's happening because, once again, if you don't do the ad with them, the activists from both of those communities, are kind of speaking up and saying, well, if you don't put Lizzo on your cover, you're fat shaming. And if you don't put, Dylan Mulvaney as your spokesperson, you're anti-trans. And unfortunately, the fear of that is what drives so many of these decisions. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of crazy. But what a taste of their own medicine when it's like, they're so afraid of not being supportive that they have to elevate these people into some fantasy land. It's fictional. Lizzo is not forget her looks, just her health. Her heart's going to fail. I mean, you've got to focus on the health part of it too, but we can't offend anybody.
Well, it's amazing too. And what I think is the biggest problem is there are literal doctors who will come out and who will throw chaff for these.
Cancel them.
Yeah, but they're not doing their patients any favors by trying to pretend like obesity is not linked to heart risk, fatty liver is not linked to risk of cirrhosis and things like that. I mean, again, Cliff, you and I, we've been through it. We struggled with our weight, right? And a lot of people who know me know that, like, in the last year, I've had weight fluctuations and I've fought, back and forth, fought the monster and things like that. And when I go to the doctor, the fact is, they say, hey, look, when I'm on the heavier side of things, they're saying, hey, listen, you've got to make some changes here to your diet because this is impacting you. But again, free country, live your life as you want to live. But I don't like being gaslit, right? I don't like being, if I had a doctor who tried to tell me that I was healthy at any size, I would get a new doctor, right? How is it that, like, these doctors have become such activists so much that they can say on one hand, trust the science, and then also in the same breath, healthy at any size?
One of my favorite comedians, Rodney Dangerfield, a doctor says, well, you're fat. And he says, I want a second opinion. He says, well, you're ugly too. And I just think, I think that unfortunately, the politics of, and when I say politics, okay, a lot of people think I mean always in the political sense. No, I just mean like the PR for these big companies, right? The decisions that they're making. I think there is so much fear in decisions. I don't think people go out and they make these great ads or these, earth-shattering commercials that are now bringing in new business. I think, unfortunately, we live in an age of name ID and fear of being called out. And people can disagree with me, but the facts back me up on this. The ads that you're seeing are not the mainstream thought. They're not, I don't think a majority of people would say, yeah, Lizzo is the definition of beauty in our culture. No, I wouldn't say that. Nobody would say that. So why do they do it? Because of the fear that if they don't, that people will push back and call them names, fat shamers, and that they're anti-big people. And unfortunately, that is what all of our marketing in America has come to, and globally,
Well, here's the thing.
based on fear.
But here's the thing: they're saying things like, "Oh, you're fat phobic." You damn right I am. Right? That is a big fear of mine, is getting fat. I am doing everything I can to avoid it. Fighting the battle of the bulge every day, and storming the beaches of Normandy. And I don't understand why they try and say that's a bad thing. But what's amazing too is I saw it just like a month ago. It's like being a fat phobic is also racist. Right, which is essentially you're saying then that like black people are inherently fat, which is, dude,
that is the most racist thing.
No kidding. There's like, what are you doing? What are you saying? It doesn't make any sense. But again, if the left could make any sense, it wouldn't be leftists, Cliff. So we got about 5 minutes left on the Wake Up America show. Again, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe if you've been enjoying the show so far. I want to highly recommend that you visit the AP for Liberty shop today. I'm promoting this new phone case that we have, the Altar of God, Thomas Jefferson, 80s themed phone case. Our 80s themed products over at AP for Liberty shop have been really popular. This one's got a picture of Thomas Jefferson wielding a lightsaber and saying his famous quote, "For I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man." One of his great quotes, and that's the one that is in the Thomas Jefferson Memorial. If you've never been to Washington, D.C., I highly recommend visiting. It's my favorite memorial in D.C., and one of the things I really like about the Thomas Jefferson Memorial is that it's set apart on an island away outside of the swamp. So it's part of the swamp, but it's sort of like sequestered. I don't really miss living in Washington, D.C., but I miss being able to go and visit Thomas Jefferson. Just a little personal anecdote. Back in 2008, when I was radicalized by Ron Paul, I was working at the LP, and I would drive into the Watergate Hotel, and in the mornings, I would pass by the Jefferson Memorial into D.C., and it was always very inspiring to see the sunlight, the sunrise coming up behind the monument. And I would sort of say a little prayer to Thomas Jefferson, Thomas, give me strength, as I would go into, it was starting my career to fight for liberty there in Washington, D.C. And Jefferson, probably more than anybody, has been one of my greatest inspirations, because if we were living in, Jefferson authored the United States, but we're living in Alexander Hamilton's world, in a sense. I don't know if have you seen the musical by chance? Yeah. And whenever I feel down, whenever I feel demoralized, which I do get sometimes, I've been in this, this fight for like 15 years now. I can't believe I'm a veteran. I used to be the young buck, but now here I am, a vet. Whenever I feel demoralized, and I know a lot of people do feel demoralized, especially when there haven't been big wins, right? Especially when the Tea Party years are over and it looks like times are dark. I always go back to Thomas Jefferson and read some of his writings, because there's so much there to make you optimistic and to make you feel positive. And this isn't just like a product shill necessarily, right? But I do like having this Thomas Jefferson phone case, because whenever I see him and I read his quotes and things like that, it sort of gives me hope that that there is a chance that what the founding fathers did was so much more challenging, I feel, even than the fights that we have today, maybe just challenging in a different way, that if they can do it, and they can do it at such a young age, then I think we can. It's really easy and it's tempting, I think, to lose hope when you see so many challenges, when you see these ATF coming down with their pistol brace rule, when you see, your presidential candidates, having very few libertarian credentials, or the Libertarian Party, for example, maybe not living up to the standards that you would really like to see. But just know that there are small victories that are being won across the country, and there are people who are fighting and leading the fight right now to restore liberty. People like Jamie Marie Pope and others. Cliff Maloney, who's joining us in studio today, he's still active in the fight for liberty. People like myself are there. You, just by watching this show and participating in this, knowing that I am an activist, and that you can choose to watch thousands of other streams in the morning, and that you have come and sat down and enjoyed it, not just because it's entertaining, which I hope you think it is, but because we are here for a cause, and that is the cause of individual liberty, which is what we stand for. Cliff, I want to just kind of give you the last word here and let you riff and tell us a little bit about what gives you hope, and how do you sort of fight against demoralization and keep the spirit of liberty alive in your own heart?
Yeah, well, one, as always, thanks for having me today. I think, look, the battle is worth it. One of my favorite quotes is, "Liberty is worth fighting for." And I think the reality is because most Americans are still with us. If that wasn't the case, I'd be pretty bummed out. I would get demoralized. But if you talk to normal, everyday Mary Jo Beer Can, as I like to call them, if you talk to normal folks, no, they don't think the government should take 25 cents of every dollar they make. They don't think we should be off fighting these foreign wars in countries that we can't even, locate on a map. They don't think the government should be spying on us or persecuting, people based on political beliefs. And so with all those things out there, I think if the gut instinct of the American people is still there, despite the COVID craziness, despite a lot of these people that don't understand the basic Bill of Rights here in America, it should give us hope. And it's why I'm honored you guys all tune in and listen to Austin. And I think it's one of the reasons why we should be fighting. So keep up the fight. CliffMaloney.com. If any of you guys want to get in touch with me, would love to chat with you. And just want to say thank you to Austin for a great show.
There you go. Appreciate you very much. Thanks for watching the program. Make sure you click like before you leave and visit the AP for Liberty shop. Today's the day you're going to head over there, get yourself a Donald Trump toilet brush or an awesome Thomas Jefferson phone case. We have the most unique products designed by myself and my lovely wife, Stephanie. We work very hard to create an awesome line of gear that will make you proud when you go out there to represent the principles of liberty in a really cool, fun, fashionable, and entertaining way over at ap4libertyshop.com. Let's give it up for Cliff Maloney one more time. Thanks for coming and doing the whole show. We appreciate him very much. We'll definitely have to have him back on very soon, and check out his show as well at cliffmaloney.com. All right, got to run. Tomorrow's Thursday. That means that we're more than halfway there. There's a lot to look forward to. We'll keep up the fight for freedom as long as you keep watching the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP4Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at ap4libertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit ap4libertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP4Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit ap4libertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.